Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Madam Co-Chair. This is a great opportunity for me to share, some of the experiences and issues related to gender and loss and damages in Bangladesh. I appreciate for giving me this opportunity, and I'm very humbled, honored, and of course, this opportunity will enrich my understanding, and also I believe that it contributes to your discussion and participation. So let me just give you a short background on climate change and Bangladesh, what is currently happening and what I have seen in last 20, 30 years in entire Bangladesh. While it is a small country, but with a large population, and currently we are having more than 160 millions of people, where we have different type of vulnerable ecosystems. We term it differently. We call it coastal zone, we call it shoreland, we call it drought-prone ecozone, we call it flood-prone ecozone. So these are different type of ecosystems. And in the coastal zone, we have like 19 out of 64 districts, and at least 1/3 of the total population live in this coastal zone. And unfortunately, this coastal zone is exposed to all type of climatic disaster. You start from sea level rise, cyclone and storm surge, salinity intrusion in both surface water, groundwater, and also on the soil, and rainfall variation, temperature variation. So there are sets of problems that really affect the life and livelihoods of both man and woman. And women are the hardest hit of any type of climatic disasters in the country. So let me refer one of the recent study that we conducted on loss and damage, and after cyclone Ayla in 2009, and that indicates that loss of rice production. As you know, in Bangladesh, the principal crop is and principal food of the Bangladeshi people is rice. So more than 80% farmers actually go for rice cultivation. So almost each and every farmers actually cultivate rice in Bangladesh. So the problems that happened during 2009, 2010, 2011, most of the farmers could not go for cultivation, in the agricultural field for rice, in 2009, 2010, and 2011. And for these 3 consecutive years, 4 villages, the study was conducted in 4 villages in one, sub-district. And we found that $1.9 million loss of rice production that the farmers experienced in those particular location. You just think about, and these 4 villages, if you convert this amount into 68,000 villages in the entire country, and about 20,000 villages in the entire coastal zone, what happens to the loss and damages? And this is actually economic loss and damage. If you come to another term, that is what we call non-economic loss and damage. And non-economic loss and damage, there are several issues when we relate non-economic loss and damage. Number 1 is morbidity and mortality. We see that in 2007, flood killed 500 people in Bangladesh. And in every disaster, in each and every disaster in last 50 years, we found both morbidity and mortality is higher in terms of women. So just think about it, how women are being affected in this type of disaster. And if I give you a statistics, last 4 flood, 2007 flood, $1.06 billion was damaged. 2004, 2.3 billion. 1998, 2 billion. 1988, 1.4 billion, which means from small disaster to a large scale disaster, minimum damage is 1 billion. But when you talk about non-economic loss and damage, as you know, Bangladesh is a riverine country, and we still have 130 rivers based on what both men and women, they depend on their livelihoods. So, and these rivers are getting, saline water due to sea level rise and cyclonic storm surge event. So the salinity level in many of the rivers is increasing in last 10 years, 10 to 15 years. So what happens due to this? Many of the local species, fisheries species, are being endangered and extinct. In many of the Oman, and when we visit villages, these affected villages, they used to say, we don't see these species, local species anymore. And and then we used to ask them, how long you don't see this species? Well, it's 5 years we don't see this species. 10 years we don't see this species. But we used to have this, since long. So these are the dangerous part that we see. One species lost, one species extinct. That really, we can connect with the non-economic loss. This is irreversible loss and damage. We cannot really interpret in economic terms. So this is the situation that we see in terms of climate change related loss and damage to both man and woman. But what we are doing about it? Currently, BRAC established a financial mechanism. This is called Climate Bridge Fund. This is a small fund. We have, two windows. One is the climate change window, another is the emergency response window. And current portfolio is about 22 million euros. So with this money, at least half of this money we are spending, to support these vulnerable people, when they lost their livelihoods in the rural areas and the affected areas, they immediately, they migrate to the nearest urban destinations. These are sub-district, small town, or even in the capital city. So when they come to this capital city or in the small towns, they don't have any hope. They don't have housing, they don't have any basic needs, and they don't have any livelihoods. So what we are doing currently is, we supported 4 projects in 2020. One of the project that we are implementing now through ultra poor graduation program of BRAC, they identified 600 woman-headed household who will be, getting support from this project for next 2-3 years, to address their loss and damage. So there are a number of options we are doing. First, we target the most vulnerable one. There are 2 indicators. One is the poverty level, how poor they are, and the second one is how they are vulnerable in terms of climate change impacts. So based on these 2 major indicators, we identified 600 women-headed households, and we try to build their capacity. First, we call them skill development training, and these trainings are basically on different issues. Small scale enterprise, for example, tea stall, and embroidery, tailoring, and small business. And in some cases, we also train them. We also include them in a financial inclusion and savings mechanism, so that they can start their small business and they can also save the money, because our understanding in recent climate change related disaster and also in the pandemic period, the last resource that remain with the woman, that helps a lot to adapt with any kind of disaster. And we asked many women, and they were saying, how do you survive in this pandemic? And they said, my husband lost their job, and we survived because we had some savings, and we had a goat, and maybe some ducks or some small scale poultry farms, and we sold all of them. So this is the resource, home-based resources that the woman has in most of the villages in Bangladesh. So, and they sold it. So it means the last resource to adapt with any kind of climatic and non-climatic disaster goes to the woman. So we need to support the women so that they can actually adapt with any kind of situation, any kind of challenges. So that's how we are actually currently trying to support the women and both men through other projects, so that they can adapt with the climate change impact in the vulnerable areas. Thank you so much. I'm a bit short, but if there is any question, probably I can respond to it. Thank you so much.